welcome to Sinister Studies. Join me each episode as I delve into some truly sinister topics and traumatize my family. I'll be joined by one or more teenager, and from time to time, we'll have special guests. Be forewarned, our stories are seriously sinister, so listener discretion is always advised. Hello again. So today I have for you a kidnapping. I know you haven't quite gotten there yet in your history class, but the Great Depression was a severe worldwide economic downturn that spanned between 1929 and 1939.
We're around there. We've talked about... Wait, well, hold on. I gotta make a Google search.
I thought you were in the Wild Wild West.
It was a while ago, but it set us back because he spent a fucking month on it. And now he's complaining like it's our fault. Like, what the hell? Did World
War I started in the midst of the Depression.
Yeah. Because that's about where we are, but it's not like exactly a linear timeline.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I know what the Great Depression is. Mm-hmm.
I know that we're going to cover a decent amount of crimes from this era because...
From this era?
Because crime was quite rampant due to the fact that the Great Depression overlapped with Prohibition in the United States and the golden era of organized crimes. So this is the setting of our tale. On May 24th, 1935, a 9-year-old George Weyerhaeuser was at school, and it was time for lunch.
George Weyerhaeuser? That's a goofy-ass name. Weyerhaeuser?
You'll see why.
Okay.
It was apparently a thing at the time for children to walk home for lunch.
Yeah.
His usual routine was to walk with friends to his sister's school, and then the family chauffeur would come and pick them up.
A chauffeur? Oh my god.
Which brings us to George's family. His great-grandfather started the Weyerhaeuser Timber Company in the Pacific Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, they were quite wealthy at a time when most people were really poor. His father, J.P. Weyerhaeuser, was at the time vice president of the company.
That's a vice president-ass name. J.P. Weyerhaeuser.
Isn't it?
Okay. You're in a fucking leadership position at a company. We get it.
You got to go by those initials.
JP, those are good initials for that too.
Anyway, little George had reached his sister's school and waited for a bit for his sister to come out. However, it was a really nice day, so he decided to walk the rest of the way home. Although this is not his usual daily routine, it was not uncommon for him to walk all the way home. So when the chauffeur showed up and George wasn't there, he wasn't overly concerned. He drove the sister home, and after a while, when George didn't show up, that's when they started getting concerned. Or I should say that's when the help started getting concerned. What happened was George was on his way between his sister's school and home when a green Buick sedan pulled over and asked this child for directions.
Okay, that's...
At the time, stranger danger really wasn't a big thing, and you were supposed to be respectful to adults and answer when they asked you a question, even if they were sketchy and strangers.
Naturally, that doesn't seem weird in retrospect at all.
George tried to do his best to give directions when a man swooped in, grabbed him, and threw him on the back floorboards of the car and covered him with a blanket. The floorboards are the space between the front seat and the back seat where you put your feet.
Yeah.
They told him that if he was quiet, they weren't going to hurt him, which I guess is a typical kidnapping threat.
Mm.
The men were William Daynard, otherwise known as William Mann, also known as Swede Davis, and an acquaintance, Harmon Whaley. Daynard and Whaley knew each other from stints in the Idaho State Penitentiary. Daynard had his own Facebook page, although the last post was from 2020. His rap sheet includes bank robbery, grand larceny, assault, and bank robbery. And he was out on parole at this time.
Cute.
Harmon Whaley was also out on parole, but he was trying to keep on the straight and narrow after serving a sentence for larceny. He was unemployed and married to his wife, Margaret, who was raised a Mormon. This is an important fact just to register.
Was she still Mormon at the time?
Yes.
So doesn't that mean he had to become a Mormon to marry her?
Yeah, she might have had plans to save him.
Mormon shit. Average Mormon.
They got married after 1 week.
1 week? Average Mormon. Average Mormon.
Harmon brought William home one day to meet Margaret, telling her that he was going to get a job with him as a salesman. The three of them drove around Washington state saying they were going on sales calls, but they were really casing banks. They went driving around the Pacific Northwest, telling Margaret that they were going on sales calls when they were really casing banks. William showed Harmon a large hole that he dug in the woods and indicated that it was for a planned kidnapping.
Naturally. That's normal.
He had drafts of ransom letters, which he had Harmon edit and retype.
And he did it?
He did it.
Why the fuck? You know, whatever.
One day, while they were all sitting around and reading the paper, Margaret noted that John Weyerhaeuser had died. Upon hearing that, William thought long and hard about it and decided that they should move to Seattle right now, where Margaret stayed home, and every day the men drove into Tacoma to case the house of the dead man, which is like a thing that people do today, where they'll read obituaries in the newspaper, wait till the services are supposed to be held, and then go to the dead person's family's house or their house.
So that supposedly people won't be there so they can just do whatever.
Yeah. People suck.
Yeah. Just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Why?
especially right after they die, like, what if some of the stuff they take has sentimental value?
I don't think they care at that point.
Yeah, I know. It's like, they don't give a fuck about that. But, like, I don't know. If I was stealing shit from people, I wouldn't do it like that. I'd have some, moral code about it.
Honor amongst thieves.
Yes.
They did ultimately decide to target J.P. Weyerhaeuser's more modest home because he had kids. They had observed the kids from afar, and that day, when George deviated from his usual routine, William decided to spur the moment to snatch him up off the street.
Yeah.
George was driven quite a ways, and when they stopped, they were deep in the woods. The men wore hoods on their heads, and they had him sign his name on a blank envelope and blindfolded him. They had him hike through the forest blindfolded.
That's safe.
To the hole that William had previously dug. The floor of the pit was covered by planks to make it more like a floor.
So they set a fucking booby trap?
Yeah,
on this fucking kid? That's some cartoon ass shit.
He's going in the hole.
That's some cartoon ass shit.
They manacled him before they put him in the hole.
Oh my god.
At about 1:30, the day of the kidnapping, the chauffeur told the children's aunt that he hadn't seen George at all that day. They called the school only to be told that he had never returned from lunch. At this point, they called the police.
Took him long enough?
Search parties were organized, and at 6:30, a special delivery letter arrived for the family. It was the envelope that George had signed. They were using it as proof of life. The letter was addressed to whom it may concern and held a number of demands.
Mm-hmm.
They would like $200,000 in cash. In today's currency, this would be almost $4.5 million.
Jesus Christ.
They would like $100,000 of it in 20s, 50,000 in 10s, and 50,000 in 5s, all in unmarked bills, and the bills should be used bills that had been in circulation already.
Making so many demands. Like, you literally stole their kid. Come on.
They also said that you should not write the serial numbers down of the bills. That was specified.
Would they even think to do that? Probably not.
The police?
Oh, not the... Oh, I was thinking about, like, the family.
No, they'd already called police at this point.
Oh, okay.
They were there when the letter came.
Oh, okay.
The note further said that police should not be called, and they should keep the kidnapping out of the papers. They had 5 days to meet their demands. They should communicate via a Seattle paper want ads, and when it was time, they were to write, "We are ready," signed Percy Minnie.
Signed Percy Minnie?
And await instructions.
Percy Minnie? Really? That's what they came up with?
That is exactly what they came up with.
That's a goofy ass fucking... God. Percy Minnie. That doesn't even... What the fuck? Okay, whatever.
The note continued on that they couldn't be caught, and they would be watching the family closely. If they followed the rules, everything would be fine. If not, it would turn out sorrowful for you, not for us. If there were any questions, place a want ad as instructed above. It was signed Egoist.
Egoist?
Egoist.
That's stupider. That's worse. That's significantly just... Like, I can't even take that seriously. Like, if somebody kidnapped... if somebody kidnapped me and they signed the letter Egoist, you wouldn't take that seriously. Like, not... You'd take it seriously, because I'd be missing, but you'd be like, seriously? Like, this is the guy that kidnapped my kid? Like, seriously? Like, be fucking for real.
Now, you'd think the police would process that letter right away, right?
Hmm.
Well, they didn't. For some reason, they had allowed the press into the family home and showed all of them the ransom note, which was passed person to person throughout the room. So they couldn't get prints off it. Nothing.
They didn't think to get the prints before they let a ton of people touch it?
Nope.
Oh my fucking god.
The Tacoma police did have the wits about them to call the FBI. The FBI assigned 3 out of 5 of their Portland field agents to the case. They were told not to speak to the press. This was soon after the federal government had passed the Lindbergh Law, which was enacted after pilot Charles Lindbergh's baby was kidnapped out of their home in 1932. The law made it a federal crime to kidnap for ransom.
That wasn't illegal before?
No. It was to kidnap for ransom, reward, or otherwise cross state lines or into a foreign country. This law excludes the parent of the child.
So wait, that wasn't illegal before?
Nope.
Also, is it technically illegal to cross state lines with somebody else's child? If you don't have, like...
Why do you think anytime...
Express consent? Like, written
yes,
consent?
we need, like... When I took your brother's friends camping, I got express consent via text message from both parents that I could cross state lines with
so
their
that
children.
if you got stopped, you could show them?
Yes.
Okay, but I mean, they were both white. They both could have been your kids.
Yes, but think about...
I know, but like if
it was summer, your father and brother were the ones in charge.
Yeah.
And they had the 2 little white boys in the backseat.
Yeah, but like hypothetically, you're less likely to be stopped for that. But Dad, yeah. when we were gonna go to water parks last year with Braylon, Dad really wanted a letter from Braylon's mom because he was like, I am not being stopped with a white child in my backseat.
It's a valid concern.
A white female child in my backseat.
Oh, Braylon is pretty much as white as they come.
Yeah. Blonde hair, blue eyes.
Oy, to Boston.
To Boston.
To Boston.
Oh my god.
So after they ran into some hikers, the men decided to move George to a second hole. So they deadass had 2 holes to commit kidnapping.
They had multiple holes?
Multiple holes. They put George in the trunk and drove him to the other location.
And put him in the other hole.
The second hole wasn't quite finished yet. So the men removed the back seat from the car and dropped it into the hole with blankets and lanterns. They just... Yes.
Wait, what do you mean it wasn't finished?
I guess they hadn't evened out the bottom yet. They didn't put their boards to make a hardwood floor in the bottom of their hole.
Gotta make it all fancy for the kid they're holding ransom, I guess. Gotta make it semi-livable.
Well, they did take the back seat out and throw it down in the hole for him, so...
So he had a couch.
He did have a couch. They did take turns standing guard, and at that point, the Weyerhaeuser family had placed an ad as requested as to when they would have the money. It was no easy feat to get that much cash so quickly, even now.
Well, yeah.
Banks usually do not have that much money on hand.
Yeah, because most money now is digital. Most people aren't carrying a lot of cash, so... Like, do you think if we went to our bank right now and asked for, like, a sum of money that large, they'd have anywhere near that amount?
No.
Yeah.
To the Weyerhaeusers, their only option was to work with the kidnappers. They didn't want to risk George's life. When it came closer to the deadline, William took Margaret with him to meet Harmon. She was surprised when they rolled up in the middle of the woods to meet Harmon. They had Margaret get down on the floorboards in the back seat and covered her with a blanket while they put something in the trunk.
Something.
When they stopped for gas, a little voice came out of the trunk. Can I get out now, mister?
Oh. Man.
So now Margaret was a knowing accomplice. She still didn't tell anybody.
Did nothing?
Well, William kept her in line by threatening her and Harmon's lives.
Oh, so, I mean, yeah, then you don't want to say something because that could make the whole situation worse.
Yes.
But not only the kid, but you.
The 3 of them brought George to a little house that they had rented and locked him in a closet. It must have been like yours because he had a full-on apartment in there. He had a mattress, a blanket, a chair, a table, a bottle of water, and a bucket to do his business in.
A chair and a table, that's probably bigger than my closet. Or at least the ceilings are higher.
It was probably about the same. We're talking about a 9-year-old.
No, but like to be able to fit a desk in there, because you know how the ceiling in my closet is slanted? It was probably not if he could fit that much furniture in there.
The press and law enforcement were all super focused on this case. The press was speculating about anything and everything they possibly could. They went so far as to report on the family dog, neighborhood children, and how they were hanging the laundry.
And how they were hanging the laundry?
Yes.
How the... Okay.
The feds had multiple people analyze the ransom note and got a lot of different angles on it. The federal analysis team determined it was typed by a woman, but it was dictated to her. The kidnappers were known to George. The errors in the letter were intentional, and the wording led them to believe that they were from Puget Sound.
From where?
Puget Sound.
What the fuck is that?
It's an area on the coast.
It sounds like a coastal area.
It is a coastal area.
That's a goofy ass name.
In the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, that checks out.
A psychologist determined that there wasn't much in the note, but they were adults with a quotes, low mental grade who were capable of murder. And my very favorite team that analyzed this note was a summer school class who determined that the perps were younger because older people were more direct and to the point, and the errors were not intentional.
Okay. They had children.
I would hope that they were like at least high school students.
Yeah, I mean, I guess getting a different perspective on things, but it's like they're not qualified.
I bet you they went on to become police officers and FBI agents.
Definitely. I mean, maybe if it was like if it was like a high school and they had like a criminal justice class or like
in the 30s.
I know, because like we have
because you have a
because we have that now. But I'm just saying, like
criminal justice,
like classes. In that circumstance, I understand. I'm not like just in general. I'm like in that circumstance.
Yes, maybe, I could see them maybe bringing
if you wanted a different perspective and you had like a group of like students who were more qualified than the average person their age, maybe. But like just getting a random class to do it, maybe not.
No, maybe they thought the more people they asked, the more information they'd get. Although they're all over the place.
Yeah.
On May 29th, on May 29th, another letter arrived for the Weyerhaeusers. It had extremely precise instructions. They should get a room at a specific hotel in Seattle and register under the name James Paul Jones.
Okay, well, this one's less stupid.
There was a letter from George as proof of life. J.P. Weyerhaeuser had to sneak out of his house so the reporters that were camped outside his house wouldn't see him. The feds took him to pick up the ransom money, where they had, of course, written down the serial numbers.
Obviously.
There were 52 pages of numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Because he was asking for all these specific ass bills.
Smaller bills.
Like, that's also just so fucking stupid. Like, really. Just, like, stop being so fucking picky. Like, you literally, like, you stole their kid and now you're being like, oh, I need this amount in 20s. It's just, like, get over yourself. You literally signed an egoist. Like, you're taking yourself too seriously. Stop.
In their kind of defense, it's harder to track smaller bills because they travel faster. He checked into the hotel as directed, and later that night, a cabbie delivered another message to him. Only one person could be in the car to deliver the money, and George would be released about 30 hours after the money was collected.
Okay. 30 hours?
30 hours.
Why 30 hours?
I don't know.
That's weird.
Another very specific letter was sent out for JP to drive out to Jackson, turn right on Rainier until he gets to Empire, and that's how the instructions went. It was go precisely this way to this spot.
Not just go, like, go this, like...
No, it wasn't go to this address. It was go down this street, make a right, go down this street.
Did they tell him an address too, or just how to get there?
The end result of this odd scavenger hunt would be a white cloth attached to sticks. Under it would be a note with more directions to a second location.
Oh my god. Like, stop putting out these scavenger hunt ass bullshit. Like,
at the second location, JP couldn't find another white flag with instructions. He looked for quite a long time before returning to the hotel. He got a call at the hotel asking why he hadn't followed the directions, And he told them that there was no white flag anywhere to be seen at the second location. So they told him he would get a second chance.
I mean, that's only fair.
The next day, JP was giving yet another set of convoluted instructions, which ended with him leaving the car in a secluded area. He had to leave on foot from here.
Oh.
Once JP was far enough away from the car, someone jumped in and drove off. Someone jumped in and drove off with the car with the money inside it. On June 1st, William drove around, dropping pieces of his typewriter all over the place so they couldn't trace it to him. They then put George in the trunk and dropped him off in the early morning hours in a deserted area with 2 blankets and $1.
$1? I mean, how much could that get you back then? Hold up. When was this?
In 1935. Dollars.
Hold up. $1 in 1935 is equivalent to purchasing power to about $21.90 today. According to officialdata.org. They didn't give me an actual calculator, but that's what it told me. So,
all right then.
Wait, another one says $22.89. So it's like somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, so $1 equals approximately 20 or so.
Yeah.
Being that he was in a deserted area, George started walking. He stopped at the first house he saw, but moved on after a little while because he's banging at the door and no one's answering. At the second house, the couple that lived there woke up and let him in. He was a farmer. The farmer gave George a pair of his kids' shoes because George didn't have any shoes on. And he took him to the gas station to look for a phone. There was no phone at the first station, but George paid for the farmer's gas with the money that the kidnappers gave him. I know, it's kind of sweet that he's like, thank you. They went to a second gas station, and the farmer tried to call the Weyerhaeuser family, but there was an issue with the phone line. He then called the police to report that he'd found the missing boy and would be bringing him in. Somehow, a reporter that was in the police station was able to get his hands on this information.
Oh, God.
He hired a taxi to drive him in the direction that the farmer and George were coming from. They spotted an old Model T coming in their direction, pulled a Huey, and chased the car down and forced them off the road.
What the fuck is, really? You're a reporter and you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna do something with this information. I'm gonna put that out there. Actively putting this kid in danger. What, were they trying to make it worse so they could keep reporting on it? What the fuck?
He told George to get out of the farmer's car and to get in the cab. Police claim that the reporter either insinuated or flat out told the farmer and George that he was a police officer. Once in the car, he had the driver go the long way back to the Weyerhaeuser home, and they sat ducked in the back seat so no one would see them, and he interviewed George all the way home.
Ugh. That's so annoying. Leave the kid be.
He did deliver the boy to the Weyerhaeusers. He had to go in through the back in their garage, and a family friend opened the door, sees some rando, and George grabs George, slams the door on the reporter.
As they should. Especially because how are they supposed to know it's a reporter? Why would you just let a random ass man into your house with your kid after a random ass man kidnapped your kid?
True. Once George was home, the FBI ramped up the effort to catch the kidnappers. George was interviewed by the police, and then was sent out to speak to reporters and pose for pictures.
Oh my god, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, leave the kid alone. Leave them all alone.
The 55-page list of bills was sent out to over 100,000 places with a note from J. Edgar Hoover asking that if a bill on the list was identified, that the FBI be called immediately and called collect to report it. Do you know what it means to call collect?
Maybe. I don't know.
So a long, long time ago, with landline phones, if you needed to call somewhere and you didn't have any money, I'd pick up a payphone and be like, I need to place a collect call. And they'd say, where do you want to call? And say I would give them grandma's number.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would call the number, and the operator would say, collect call coming from whoever. But it was a recording by the time I was a teenager. So you could record things like, I'm done, just pick me up. And that would be the message. But the person who is being called is the one who pays for the call.
Uh-huh.
Instead of the caller paying for the call.
So the FBI would cover the cost.
They were going to cover the cost. Because I'm sure it wasn't cheap to make a long-distance call to the FBI.
Yeah, and it's like if you, like, I mean, it's nothing. Like, it's worth covering a fucking phone call to make sure that these people aren't, like, free to kidnap more kids.
True. On June 2nd, William and Harmon decided it would be best to part ways. Harmon took his cut, which was $95,000, and packed it into 2 suitcases. He gave one to Margaret and sent her to her father's. He did follow her with a second case, but they traveled completely separate. From there, they traveled again separately to Salt Lake City. They rented a house, but when Margaret saw that there were no dishes, Harmon gave Margaret money for shopping and asked her to exchange some of his bills for silver, essentially laundering the money. Then he went out and bought himself a Ford Roadster for $135.
Man.
I wish I could buy a car for $135.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Even $13,500 would be great. So, money laundering has officially begun. Margaret would go to the shops and buy something with a large bill and then get the change with small bills that had not been cataloged. Eventually,
so that even if they
found a marked bill, it had already been, like, that person was long gone.
Yeah. So eventually they'd filter out all the marked bills, and after a certain point, they just wouldn't be traceable?
Theoretically. However, Margaret was shopping in the same stores over and over again.
Oh, so not the smartest.
So eventually, Margaret went in to buy something with a large-ish bill, like a $5 bill.
Which was, larger back then.
In a Woolworths.
Mm-hmm.
They checked the number on the bill, and it was a match. The thing was, the bill that she paid with had been given to her in change from a previous purchase. So the money that she had been trading basically got traded back to her.
She was just circling the money back to herself?
Yes.
Oh my fucking god. That's some cartoon ass shit. Okay, so maybe she's not the smartest, but
she really had no real world experience. She was a teenager. She went from her father's house to marrying this delightful man in 1 week. She's just doing what she's told.
Average Mormon.
Police were African
Wait,
Mormon.
wait. No, this is like besides the point, but have you seen those videos where like these like people will go to like I forget which like college it is, but it's the specific like Mormon university.
Yeah,
And they'll
Brigham
go
Young
there and they'll
University.
be like, how fast like what is the quickest you've seen a couple get engaged?
I have not seen that.
And then some of the answers are just like, oh, like 2 weeks.
I mean, at least that and I waited 6.
Oh,
We ain't
wow.
Mormon though.
Got engaged at Mormon speeds, but
Mormon speeds.
not Mormon.
Police were called on Margaret, and she was arrested. When they arrested her, she had a draft of a ransom note in her purse.
Oh.
When Harmon couldn't find her, he went home and decided to burn all of his papers, his hat, and over $3,000.
Jesus Christ.
He then left the house again and went looking for Margaret.
Calculator, 1935. Amount? How much did he burn?
3,000.
Okay, so that's only like over 67,000 in today's money. Just light work.
Just a little.
Just a little money. Not that much.
So he left the house to look for Margaret again after he'd burned a lot of money. And he was arrested when he returned. Because Margaret cracked pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would too. Like at that point, I'd just be like, fuck this guy.
Both had initially denied any involvement. And both cracked under pressure and both gave up William. Harmon gave the feds instructions to find the rest of his share of the money. They recovered $90,700.
Okay, so I mean,
so if you count in the 3,000 that he burned, that would be 93,700. So they didn't really spend that much money.
Yeah, I mean, how long were they out anyway?
So they returned him they dropped him off May 29th. This was, I mean, it was still June. This was weeks.
Oh.
At most, this was weeks.
So, I mean, they couldn't have spent that much money. I mean, back then that money was worth more, but still.
Somehow William discovered that the two had been arrested, and he ran off to Montana. He was identified by a police officer who knew him from a prior bank robbery in town. So he went back to a town that he had previously robbed.
Why the fuck would he do that?
He did unsuccessfully try to catch William, but they did find his car. They did find his car, and inside they found $15,155.
Damn.
But William is gone. The Whaleys were quickly returned to Washington to face charges. Margaret's family hired a lawyer for her, although both Harmon and Margaret wanted to plead guilty to the Lindbergh Law, because in Washington at the time, the penalty for kidnapping is death.
Uh-huh.
So the federal charges and punishments were far less than the local ones. To make sure that they were able to be charged federally, they both admitted that they had briefly crossed into Idaho while driving around with George.
Oh, so
they crossed state lines.
Yeah, so that they wouldn't have to be necessarily tried for in where again? Washington. So that yeah, okay, that makes sense.
They were both charged with kidnapping and mail fraud and held in the same jail but in separate cells. When brought before the judge on June 21st, they both pled guilty, but Harmon announced to the court that Margaret had nothing to do with the crimes.
I mean, she was kind of forced to be an accomplice.
And more than likely, yes. But she did seem to enjoy spending the money.
Yeah. It's not like she, like, gave him up after that or anything.
So I'm sure it will surprise you, but her lawyer told the judge that he didn't think she was thinking rationally, that he didn't think it was in her best interest for her to plead guilty, and she refused to listen to him. So the judge agrees with the lawyer, and they're going to have a trial for Margaret. Harmon was sentenced immediately to 45 years in prison for kidnapping, plus 2 for mail fraud, plus he had to pay $20 for the cost of the prosecution. Margaret's trial started on July 5th. She pled not guilty, and her lawyer attested that she did not know anything about the kidnapping, even though she had already said that she did. A jury was chosen and was immediately sequestered due to the sensationalized nature of the case. The trial was 3 whole days.
Wow.
Incoming sirens.
We're gonna have to get the police scanner out again? Like, what the fuck is happening? Someone house burning down? Someone's grandma having a stroke? Like, what's happening?
No, that's the ladder truck. Something's burning.
Oh, okay.
Everyone's going to know how nosy we are.
Yeah. She has the police scanner downloaded.
The trial...
She listens.
Margaret took the stand in her own defense. She testified that she had no knowledge of the crime until she heard George in the trunk. And
I mean, she didn't, right?
No.
Supposedly? Yeah, okay.
Because she didn't ask any questions. They were gone for days at a time. She didn't care.
Yeah.
As long as they said they were working.
Because they did have an excuse. They did lie to her.
Yeah. He also told them that William had threatened to kill her and Harmon if she told anyone about the situation. She was described by her lawyer in court as being a pitiful dupe, stupid, and a victim of her Mormon beliefs.
Oh, wow. That's mean. Imagine, like, hiring a lawyer, and the lawyer's just like, you're a dumbass, you're an idiot, you're Mormon, like, L plus ratio plus you're Mormon. Like, what?
I can't imagine sitting there and listening to that. And I don't know.
I mean, like, I get that the lawyer was trying to get the point across that she was not a willing accomplice, but, like, maybe insulting her very openly is not the way to do that. She's like, she's stupid. She couldn't have known she was involved in a kidnapping. She's a fucking idiot. Like, what? No way that was necessary.
Prosecution described her as remorseless. On July 13th, she was found guilty and sentenced to 20 years.
Okay, so not as much as him.
She claimed to be happy with her verdict and told people that she'd rather wait for Harmon in prison than to be free without him.
Oh my fucking god. After I mean, I know, like, she was Mormon. And it's like, you know, divorce, not really an acceptable thing. So, like, it wouldn't have been socially acceptable. But, like, he was a kidnapper, girl. He kidnapped a kid. He lied to you.
On May 6th, a hotel proprietor in San Francisco walked across the street to the FBI field office and told them she had a guest she thought was shady as fuck. The next day, when William left his room to check on the car and the cash, the feds surrounded him and he was immediately arrested. He had $7,300 on him, and he led the feds to another $13,000.
Damn.
He pled guilty on May 9th and was given 60 years. Of the $200,000 they recovered $36,055 from William, $90,700 from Harmon, and then also add in the $3,000 that was burned from Harmon, which leaves $129 $129,000, $755,000 unaccounted for. They never found it, supposedly.
Like, even, like, did they stop having the serial numbers be reported after they were incarcerated? Supposedly, right?
Probably. But if they hid that excess money and they only gave up a little bit of the money, like one hiding spot,
yeah, could still be out there.
It could be.
We should find it and take it. No, just kidding. I don't want to go to fucking middle of nowhere, USA.
So what happened to everybody? The farmer was rewarded with a nice piece of land and a lifetime job with the Weyerhaeuser Corporation. Harmon mailed George several letters of apology from prison. He was released in 1962 after serving 27 years. He contacted George after he was released and asked him for a job.
What? I wouldn't.
George gave him one.
Oh.
He died in 1974.
Okay.
William served half of his sentence and was released in 1965. He died in 1992.
Did he, like, do anything after that?
Not really.
Of note? Okay.
Our loyal friend Margaret served 13 years.
Okay.
She was released in 1948. She immediately divorced Harmon.
Yay!
She did remarry and died in 1984. George grew up, served in the Navy, graduated from Yale, and eventually became CEO of Weyerhaeuser.
All right.
He died in 2022 at the age of 95.
Damn. All right.
Weyerhaeuser is still thriving today, owning approximately 12.4 million acres of forest in the U.S.
What does Weyerhaeuser do?
It's a lumber company.
Oh, okay.
They do
like
sustainable lumber collection.
Oh, well, I guess
they're
that's good.
Constantly replanting. I don't know.
Yeah, so they're not just like doing deforestation and then.
Now they're going in the opposite direction. So that is the fucked up story of George Weyerhaeuser's kidnapping.
All right.
Thank you for joining us today. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram or at sinisterstudiespod@gmail.com. Shit's burning in town today.
Damn. All right. Well, rate us on the platform you're using to listen to this. It's stars on Spotify. I don't know what it is anywhere else, but you can do that.
Until next time.
Adios.
Welcome to Sinister Studies. Join me each episode as I delve into some truly sinister topics and traumatize my family. I'll be joined by one or more teenager, and from time to time, we'll have special guests. Be forewarned, our stories are seriously sinister, so listener discretion is always advised.